Animals and atomic research continued. Last video was about this document, it's a PDF file you can find out on the interwebs. It's by Edward R. Ricciuti. I read the intro last time. I was trying to show the document and that just doesn't quite work. This is so terribly presented, but hang in there. Again, introduction. Millions of animals are playing a part in the progress of nuclear science. Beagles at the Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory explore their new quarters in the health research laboratory building. The laboratory was awarded a citation for excellence in animal quarters and stress-free, humane handling of its animals. Again, President Johnson had beagles. It was part of the normalizing conversations, T-norm. First chapter, Animals, Men, and Science, Living Books of Life. So, this document is misnamed. This is not Animals in Atomic Research. This is about America's research into the fundamentals of life and what we know and understand about how the body works. This is just a small piece of it from 1967, 1968. So there were big hopes and intentions of introducing all of this science out to the world. And this is a well-written document. It's worth going and scrubbing, taking a look at, and ignore the title. It talks about the circulatory system, talks about smallpox conquered by cowpox, germs and disease theory, other discoveries in medicine, research animal population. Again, these are just parts of the chapters. Atomic age animals, animal studies and radiation. How many animals? Radiation and life, types of radiation. What this document really is speaking to is how well, how good, how precise, how much better measurements taken were documented and summarized and understood and shared with other people. It's how science works and improves itself by sharing ideas and getting feedback on the ideas. So from 1967-68, this document, Radiation and Aging, Body Repair, Somatic and Genetic Effects, Radiation in the Environment, part of our world. It is part of our world. But here's the next one. Here's one of the keys that really got me. Tracking radioisotopes. We've actually gotten better than that. We track isotopes themselves, not just radioisotopes. See, radioisotopes kind of yell, they identify themselves because they self-destruct with a signature. And that signature we can use both to identify what blew up, what self-destructed, and get very good ideas where it came from because of ratios of other isotopes. So the tracking radioisotope section in here really keyed me back on parts of conversations that I've talked to in over 1,000 videos now. Radioactive waste. Here's a big one because a waste dump in West Texas for high-level radioactive waste has been approved by a federal agency. Should that concern you? Yes. Waterfowl. So this document about animals in atomic research is not really this is just research. 1968, where we were then, how far we've come. Now we are manufacturing medical cures, medical wonders, based on these studies, on this, if you can see it. This is a huge appendium speaking to decades, man-decades, for each one of the topics in here, in rooms that understand the definitions of the words and the vocabulary, because, as I've mentioned, it changes. Your definition of a word or an acronym might not quite match what the presenters are, what the speakers are, or their intents. So, this research is done Oak Ridge National Labs. You know where that is? Came from the Hanford site. It's within a few hours drive of home here, and I've been to multiple times. They talk about sage, whole body irradiation, skin exposure, inhalation. Now this is a key here as well, this inhalation threat. EPA is talking a lot about particle size in the air. Very important. It's lung loading. Those little particles in the air are lung loading. You have to manage somehow. If you can't spit them up, you might be in trouble. So inhalation pathways, 1968. This little paragraph in one section speaks to where we were in 1968. What happened? Internal emitters. I think I spoke to this in the last one. Internal emitters are part of bioaccumulation studies. Where does an element, a compound, an isotope travel in your body? Radiation in the nervous system. This radiation is just an idea. It's energy. That energy can affect a lot of things. Genetic effects. Beneficial application. Radiation, insects and disease. Probing pesticides. Spare parts for man. There's a part in there about that. Cancer. Other diseases. Development of detection devices. Now this is a key. Mentioned before, one of my specialties, military trained by Air Force academies as a Marine in the science and art of metrology. The instruments themselves and how they work, how they're calibrated, and where they were at the point in time I had those classes, and where they've come since then, because that was my professional foundation for work out in the real world. Development of detection devices. This is the world of CERN. When I went to Sweden, one of my interests was a university nearby that's developing the detectors, some of the detectors, for use in the CERN super collider. Detector arrays. When CERN's turned on and starts collecting data, it creates more data in a second than mankind has in decades. Interesting piece of machinery there. Development of detection devices. This is where we are. We're detecting electrons and shell movements. We're detecting subatomic forces, trying to learn what the heart of an atom truly is, because when we say alpha, beta, and gamma particle emissions, or protons, or other emissions from the nucleus of an atom, there's more to it than that. It's complicated. So we know that. These detection devices have just gotten better and better. We went from analog systems to digital systems. Something in there called an analog to digital converter is one of the keys to these conversations. High precision analog to digital converters. High speed, high precision. They went from 4-bit little devices on a chip to 8 bits, to 16 bits, to 32 bits, to 64 bits, able to slice into smaller and smaller pieces an analog signal. Fascinating how things work. development of detection devices. These are your instruments. This is your fluke meters. These are the meters you go into the auto shop and see on the wall. Digital voltmeters, clamp-on ammeters. Inexpensive compared to where they were. So under these detection devices, trace the accumulation of radioiodine in the thyroid gland. One use of these detection devices. These detection devices migrated from vapor chambers and film. Film was used. Photographic film is used to detect radioactivity. Exposed properly, it tells a tale. That's how a lot of this started. Photographic film was used for optical emission spectroscopy before we invented the electronics to go look at those wavelengths of light specific to an element. Hidden in that white is a spectrum behind me of light waves. Some energy good, some bad. Pretty cool stuff. So through the circulatory system, again, 1968, and it's like sometime in the 70s and 80s, we lost faith in our education system, passing along real knowledge. We lost faith. Veterinary medicine and the nuclear aid, this is a key. I speak about sentinels. These are places, locations looking for things. This isn't just the fire tower out in the forest, right? There's a sentinel. Real people just spend their days getting paid, looking for fires, looking for smoke. So, sentinels, they're an important thing for animal husbandry, to find diseases and stop them in their tracks, to isolate infected areas, to learn about what's in our cattle, in our beef, in our pork, in our chickens, and the better ways to treat these animals to keep all of us healthy in the food chain, the cycle of life. Veterinary medicine, radiation effects on farm animals. It's an interesting small section. Each one of these is volumes of materials behind them. This is an appendium, an accumulation presented by this author of a lot of information. A lot of different sciences Adam used to combat insects. Now this is where we were in the 60s. Do not think it stopped. Why we need more weapons spend is beyond me. Anyway, animal nutrition. So I've got another 10 pages. Radiation research. Care of laboratory animals, the men who care, it should be men and women who care, the people the humans who care, or do they? Suggested references, a few pages of suggested references, books, articles, motion pictures. Appendix 1 is a census of laboratory animals used in programs of the Division of Biology and Medicine. So at that time, the U.S. Atomic Energy Agency owned biology and medicine research. Same way in Europe. They had the money, the funding to go do this research and drive and focus it. Mice, rats, hamsters, guinea pigs, other rodents, rabbits, dogs, cats, primates, swine, cattle, burros, ponies, and horses, sheep and goats, marmosa, one of those little monkeys, I think those are marmosets, rat kangaroos, wallabies, birds, lots of birds, total rodents, almost 500,000, non-rodents, 12,000, total animal use, 470,000 animals. And the number of experiments, you don't want to look at this, really. Life can be brutal. Guiding principles for secondary school students and science club members in the use of animals. So this appendix is referencing secondary school students. That was the target audience for this document. You remember seeing this conversation anywhere in secondary school, students? Oddly, all the names referenced here have been changed. I think by renaming these organizations, like the AEC that wrote and sponsored this one, is now the NRC. Names changed to protect the innocent. Anyway, too long a video, 15 minutes. Peace out, neighbors. Take care and vote. School boards, whatever you got time for, pay attention. Thanks.